Good morning. What day is it today? It's Saturday. Of course it's Saturday. I'm not in the usual place, you could say. Look where I am. Leaving beach. There is literally one person on this whole beach. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along to London Links Lower Largo and I'm going to say hello to the seals that sit on the rocks because they'll be out sunbathing even at this time because the sun's out, it's roasting. I've had to take my jacket off. So yeah, day 20 of my property journey investment strategies. And you can see the tagline. It says how to recover your property in record time. Before I go into that, I'll talk about if there's one thing I've ever learned, it's make sure you tick everybody else's boxes. And that's the way forward for everything. And what do I mean by that? But first of all, I'll just talk about this property and what the lesson or the blessing it taught me. So I bought this property in 2001. I subsequently sold it 5 years later, tripled the value. The market was going ballistic. I think I was fortunate enough to see the rise of buy-to-let without actually even knowing it, if that makes sense. And a lot of landlords still saw huge returns even when I sold, and there still is today. Because when I sold, it's probably less than the price it is now, and the rents are still about the same. So, you know, there's still money to be made in buy-to-let and provide good housing and services for our tenants. So what did this property teach me? Well, I do remember putting one tenant in, and I'll not name her name, but she decided to move on. But she didn't tell me, and the unfortunate thing is she just gave the key straight to her brother. But the problem was her brother was, he was addicted. He was addicted to drugs, and you know, drugs doesn't discriminate, by the way. It doesn't mean to say if you're poor, if you're rich, drugs has no discrimination here. It will get a hold of anybody. So, you know, I've always learned that, and one of the guys that actually taught me all this and showed me the circumstances surrounding drugs and all the rest of it was Dave Alexander, the counsellor, because he used to work beside Dave and Tillis Russell, and he used to tell me some of the stories, you know, about situations, obviously without naming names, and I couldn't believe it. And it was only when I became a landlord that I realised that there was a kind of huge drugs problem. I wouldn't say huge, but you know, there was a drugs problem, and I wasn't even aware of it. And I think that taught me quite a lot, being a landlord and being more social towards my tenants. Anyway, back to this one before I talk about how to get people out in record time in a property. And this is what taught me the lesson. So I handed over to her brother, but the thing is, I think her brother must have lost the key at some point in time, kicked the door in. So basically, you know, when I went to visit the property, it was completely, you know, obliterated inside. I couldn't believe it. I was gutted. But I couldn't believe the state of the property as well. I walked in and there was about 300 needles sitting just scattered about the lounge. It was horrible. But I thought I'd take the opportunity to maybe teach my children something about drugs. So I know it was Tony. Tony had helped me do this property up. She'd seen it in the beginning, and it was almost 6 months later. This property was in some disrepair because of this situation that had happened. So I actually took Tony round, and before we went in, I explained to her, you know, do you know how this property was in mint condition when we actually gave it to someone? Well, you know, and I told her the circumstances and the fact that, you know, our brother was unfortunately a drug addict, and what had happened to him. And I said, this is what happens when you get addicted to drugs, and this is what happens. You don't realise it's happening to you. You slowly decline into it. And I actually took her in and showed her all. Obviously, I never let her get near anything, but I showed her all. And I think to me that was one of the best lessons ever. Out of that, and probably that situation was worth more than the damage it had caused ever, because that'll stick with Tony for the rest of her life, and realising and understanding it, you know, that's what it does to people, the drug situation. Anyway, how to get people out in record time. One thing I've learned out of this whole process is you've got to make sure you tick everybody else's boxes. I'm a great one, and everybody knows that, for challenging the powers that be. Not fighting with them, but challenging them. Never fight with them. There's always a way forward, and there's always there's always something to be gained out of it, and a lesson or a blessing in what you're doing. So what I'd found was, if I then understood the whole process for going through and getting a property back, and ticking all these boxes, I can get a property back on the market and get it back into my hands. It's quicker in the process without actually going through the court system. So there's a procedure in Scotland called abandonment. So what I did was I read up on abandonment, and I read out the whole process and the due diligence you have to do to prove abandonment. You can't just put somebody out. That's no legal. You have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that that person is not living at the property anymore, and you have to do that in certain ways. And we know how to do that in that process. And that makes things a lot easier and a lot quicker. And that was we had established that procedure in conjunction with people like Key Fund, Homestart, John Mills, who is now Head of Housing at Fife Council, Vanya Kennedy, Rosemary Hutchison, who is now no longer with us, sadly. Rosemary was fantastic. And we, over the years, I started to work with the local authority and with all the services, and establish a procedure in order to allow that to happen without actually going through a costly exercise of doing that through the courts. And that procedure, it still exists today. So I think that's the one thing I'd learned out of this property and out of the whole process, and out of working with Fife Council and working with all the other support services in order to establish that procedure. And as well, and it stood me in good stead as well. Like, I started to master the art of being able to tick all the boxes for the mortgage companies as well. So I worked it all out before I even started, how to actually go through the whole process of getting mortgage approval in record time. So that's kind of how I establish things. I'm quite clinical and I'm quite obsessive. Most my staff will be nodding their head now. Yes, he's quite obsessive. And I'm quite clinical and obsessive in how I do things. So in order to do it, I need to get it done right, and I need to get it done the exact way. And I think that's probably the most important thing for me, establishing all the procedures and making sure it's all done right, and making sure we tick all the boxes for the right people, both legally and morally and socially. That's probably the most important lesson I learned out of this property. And that's probably the benefit of why people use us. Really, that's what it is. And I'm going to say a big congratulations to my staff. We are now Letting Agent of the Year for the 10th year, voted for by our landlords. That is amazing. We're also number 2 in Scotland for Letting Agent of the Year. We are also number 1 in Scotland for Estate Agent of the Year. We're number 2 in Scotland as well for the Estate Agent of the Year, the Leaving Office and the Cooper Office. And we're also the best small group in Scotland, voted for by our customers as well. And that was a record achievement, as well as best in county for lettings and sales. So we got 6 awards at the Esters yesterday, which is the Estate Agent Awards, the only awards voted for by your customers and not by a panel. And that's enough for me today to talk about anything. So I hope you got some benefit out of that. I'm certainly learning a lot more about the processes and learning a lot more about myself and how to do things. Bye-bye for now from the sunny Leaving Beach. I'm going away along to Largo for a nice walk, because I've no starting work at 9 o'clock this morning, although I will probably work today. That's me, Mr. Workaholic. But I enjoy it. I'm driven. Okay, see you later. Bye.